So good evening all, and welcome to this evening's Consultant Forum meeting. As you'll probably all know, these meetings are recorded, so if you've got any colleagues who haven't been able to make it now, I'll circulate the recording subsequently, and that just to let others join who need to. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce Afzal Chowdhury this evening, who will give us some eHospital and Epic updates along with his colleagues. And I'm going to let Afzal introduce his team. And at the end, we'll have some time, I hope, for questions and discussion. So, Afzal, thank you. Over to you.
Many thanks, Justin, and thanks. Evening, everybody. Thank you for asking us to come along. So just by way of introduction, I've got the three deputy CCIOs on the call this evening, and they'll be presenting in turn. So that's James Rudd from cardiology, Will Jelson from hepatology, and Ari Ercole from anesthetics. And James is going to be talking a little bit about training related matters. Will is going to be talking a little bit around physician builder type activities. And then Ari is going to be finishing up to talk about messaging in Epic and the forthcoming introduction of this secure chat messaging system. I wanted to start with a few more, should we say, fragmented topics, just a series of things really to bring you up to date before handing over to the more substance of the call this evening. If I start with infrastructure and equipment, COVID obviously has slowed us down a little bit in many respects for some of the things that we wanted to do, but we have been spending a lot of time behind the scenes in between all of the dashing around for COVID to strengthen more of the infrastructure in the trust, and that's going to be continuing through into the spring of next year. But by about April/May, all things being equal, we will have completed the update of the Wi-Fi network, and we will have deployed just over 3,000 wireless access points. Previously, when we were working with DXC and when we first implemented eHospital, we had just over 1,000. So we've trebled the density of access points, and the new equipment is able to sustain more devices connected to each access point at any given point in time. So we've really put a lot of effort into upgrade that. And combined with that, the bandwidth to the outside world from the hospital has been increased tenfold, both for the core network, but also for the staff Wi-Fi network. And also we're about to do the same for the patient Wi-Fi network as well, so that hopefully some of the challenges that people have had in the past around Wi-Fi usage will disappear. Equipment such as desktops and laptops continues to be a challenge for us. There's a worldwide shortage of kit, partly prompted by COVID, but partly prompted by a series of fires last year in a number of chip manufacturing capabilities in the Far East. And that means that it's difficult for us to get equipment. We have got equipment on order, but one of the things that I would ask is, in your respective specialties and your clinical areas and your administrative areas, if there is equipment that is not being used, we will see that on the network, and we will be approaching areas from time to time to say, you have kit here that is apparently not being used, please could we redeploy that? In an attempt to be, shall we say, relatively equitable about this, what we're trying to do is redeploy area within a given division, because we know that there are staff out there still waiting for equipment. But if we aren't able to deploy it, or there isn't a need within that division, we will deploy it across elsewhere into the hospital. We are hoping that come this, again, sort of probably mid-February to March onwards, that the supply of kit will become a little bit more stable, but certainly for the meantime, there's going to be some challenges. The other challenge that I want to flag up is cybersecurity. To give you a little bit of context, the trust typically is subject to somewhere between 290 and 300,000 cyber attacks, if you like, or incidents each month. And that's been ongoing for some time, and we're well protected from those. Some of you may have learnt about a cybersecurity flaw in a piece of very commonly used software. It's on the BBC News website today. That is affecting the trust and pretty much every major digital entity worldwide, including people like Microsoft and Apple and so on. And that is prompting somewhere in the region of 100 hacking attempts a minute to most institutions. And again, we're at the moment protected against that. We can do a lot of work to protect at a technical level, but the weakest link in the chain around cybersecurity is all of us individuals. And so again, I would encourage you and your teams just to be mindful of the fact that please don't click on links that you don't know. If you get emails from people promising you all sorts of money and happiness, it's unlikely to be true, and please don't click on it, and please don't add to the challenges that the hospital faces. And the same also in your personal life as well. Some more positive things just before I hand over to James. I've been making a case for voice recognition. There's a paper that's going to management executive this week for the executive and divisional directors to consider. I'm hoping that it will be approved. It's still, as I say, pending approval, but if it does pass muster, we will be deploying a better form of voice recognition across the trust throughout the early part of the next year. The aim is to have an enterprise-wide license capability, so many thousands of licenses, and we think that that will be beneficial. Most hospitals who've implemented it have been able to demonstrate quite significant benefits, and we would be keen to work with a number of specialties if it is passed to understand how is it used and to help articulate those benefits so that we can show value for money. And the last slightly topic that doesn't fit into a current theme is around the Biomedical Research Centre, which is really to say that with the help of Miles Parks and others, we've been working on some technology to help there. So the first piece is we have deployed something called an Azure landing zone. So it's a framework extending into Microsoft Azure with some associated security around it, which in effect creates an extension of the trust network in this cloud-based environment. And that will start to put us in a good place for being able to offer a lot more flexibility around the type of computing capability that's available to researchers going forward. The prototype project that's gone in there is Raj Jenner's Inner Eye project, and that's starting to work quite effectively there. And as I say, going into next year, the governance will be in place to allow us to extend that. In conjunction with that, some of you may have seen the press release that was a week or so ago, where the trust had signed a contract with a company called Sensign. Sensign have been working with many NHS trusts around taking anonymized or de-identified data and using that for research and to create machine learning algorithms and so on. The trust has an equity stake in Sensign as a consequence of that deal, and also receives royalties on any algorithms that might come out in proportion to the volume of data that we submitted. But one of the benefits of the Sensign deal compared to many other offers that have been made to the trust is that we also get some additional funds to reinvest into the reporting team and the infrastructure around data analytics in the trust. And the aim, again, from a research perspective, is to start to work towards delivering a greater set of automated data streams into a set of both self-service tools that will allow you to do some of your own analytics without having to ask the central team for that data, but also to support researchers in a much more streamlined and automated fashion. So there'll be more on that again in the new year. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to hand over to James Rudd, who is going to be talking to you around the topic of training and related items. James.
Thanks, Afzal. I will try and share my slides. Can everybody see those?
Yep.
Is that coming through? Yeah, okay, perfect. So as Afzal said, I'm James Rudd. I am an academic cardiologist, but deeply interested in the EPIC system, and I'm one of the deputy CCIOs. My particular area of interest is really to improve the use of EPIC by both people new to the trust, just joining, but also people in post, to try and do things more efficiently and make the system more pleasant to use, less friction. So I'm going to give just 3 or 4 slides really about the current setup of training that we have at CUH. There's quite a lot to do for the training team, which is a subset of the e-hospital team. So every year we have to train around 600 new starters, 600 doctors, 350 nurses, 600 healthcare assistants, 250 student nurses, 200 allied health professionals, 200 admin team, and also medical students as well. So a lot of people have to be got into the EPIC system. In terms of the makeup of the training team, there are around 20 people, I think it is, no, 16 people here who deliver all this training. So an enormous amount of work, which has been made more complex by COVID, because as it stands at the moment, all doctor training is face-to-face in a classroom setting with a separate computer for every delegate. Normally, the training rooms that you may remember, they accommodate 10 people, but that's been reduced down to 5 because of COVID. So it's been incredibly difficult for the training team to keep on top of things. Nevertheless, a new starter to Addenbrooke's can expect to take the inpatient doctor EPIC training module, which is 4 hours. It used to be 11.5 hours when we started back in 2014. Some of you may remember it, but we've managed to cut that down really to the bare essentials of what's needed to work as a doctor on the wards. And then depending on what people do in their day-to-day jobs, if you do outpatients, then you have another 4-hour course to do, which is usually delivered on the same day as the inpatient doctor course. If you work in surgery, doing procedures, there's another 2 hours of training. The same for radiologists. Anesthetists need 4 hours of training. Some of that is devolved to the anesthetic department, and RE in particular is involved in delivering that kind of training. Emergency care, emergency doctors, another 4 hours of training in addition to the inpatient doctor. And then other specialties like oncology, ophthalmology, cardiology, there's another 2 to 3 hours of training which takes place. So this is all for people who are new starters, but I'm very keen that we try and improve the training of people who are already using EPIC. And so what is there already in place for ongoing training within EPIC? Well, as you start at Addenbrooke's, you do leave with a printed memory jogger and an EPIC Playground login, which some of you may be familiar with from the recent upgrade. The Playground, or PLY as it's shortened to, is an EPIC environment with dummy made-up patients that you can practice ordering, writing notes, writing letters, all that kind of thing. You also get access to the online tip sheet library. In fact, everybody on this call who uses EPIC, if you look at the top right of your screen in hyperspace, you'll see this link here, my eHospital link. If you click on there, it'll take you through to the Connect website and a whole host of PDFs and tip sheets, familiarization packs, all relating to different aspects of EPIC. Of course, everybody has access to the IT service desk 24/7. And doctors also sometimes request at the elbow training, which means that an EPIC or a member of the training team will come to sit next to you in clinic or on the wards and actually help you to get the most out of the system. Also, some of the training team will frequently attend departmental meetings, governance meetings, that sort of thing, to deliver specific training. Where can you go for more training? You can consider joining the ESL team, the EPIC Specialty Lead team, which is a forum of consultants and other senior staff representing each hospital department. Will Jolson is going to talk a little bit about that shortly. eHospital Support Links is another group of mainly non-medical staff that meet to discuss how to improve the EPIC experience for their members. A new offering, it actually started during the pandemic, is called a Power User course, which is an EPIC hosted live online course with 10 modules, which is really good for improving efficiency in the EPIC system. It's only for doctors, and they're very sort of common things that we all use, like how to place an order, how to manage your in-basket better, how to write effective notes with just a few clicks rather than typing everything out every time. Reports, Haiku, which is the iPhone EPIC application. And anybody can now, with a couple of emails, get access to that course. Will's going to talk about Physician Builder course and becoming a physician builder, so I'll leave that for now. What are we planning in the next year or so to try and improve training for people who are already at Addenbrooke's? So we're going to do a survey and we're going to ask people what their top friction points, their top problems are within Epic, and what they'd like to do faster and with fewer clicks. We're also going to have a single place where all the best learning materials, such as very short videos made by Epic, PDFs made by Epic, and some videos made by us, are going to be hosted. So there's one place to go to try and get an answer to your question. We're going to run monthly Zoom education sessions, just like this one, but demonstrating Epic tips and tricks, hosted by me and members of the training team. Once COVID is finished, if it's ever finished, we plan to restart the drop-in sessions that we used to run 4 or 5 years ago in the concourse and in the Deakin Centre, where people could drop in for quick fixes and personalization of their Epic setup. And finally, for people who really want to progress, as I say, please do consider joining the Epic Specialty Lead team or completing the Power User courses. And again, I can provide you with details of how to do those things if people would like. I'm going to stop there and happy to take any questions if people have them. Otherwise, we'll move on, I guess, to Will. But let me know if there are questions.
Thanks, James. I wonder if we might, if Afzal, if you agree, if we might just hold questions till the end, just in case some of the questions aren't then covered in subsequent talks. Would that seem reasonable with you, Afzal?
Yeah, no, very happy with that.
And then, so if people do have questions, please hold on to them, make a note of them, and there'll be a chance to put those to the team at the end. Thanks, James. I'll leave you to carry on and go back on mute.
So, Will, over to you.
Thanks very much, Afzal. Thanks, Justin, James. I hope you can hear me okay and see the slides. Do butt in if you can't.
Will, I can only just ever so slightly hear you. I don't know if that's just me. You're very, very.
Yeah, Will, you're very quiet compared to your.
Okay. What I'll do. I've changed it slightly. Can you hear me now?
That's perfect.
Very good. Thank you very much.
And slides are good.
So I'm going to take over and carry on the theme that James just started with. I'll talk briefly about the Epic Specialty Leads and then a bit more about the Physician Builder program. So the Epic Specialty Leads are a group of consultants mainly who meet once a month and discuss issues around Epic. A lot of the departments in the hospital have got a specialty lead. A few don't, and I'm very happy to hear from anyone who doesn't. And we, as I say, we talk about Epic related things, send emails around that are pertinent to every department and help users develop the system and signpost them to various courses and so on, which are available. So I'm now going to move on to talk about the courses, and in particular the Physician Builder program. So firstly, what are physician builders? Well, they're trained and certified physicians who can augment build staff to address both small and large build needs. So if in your department you have a problem that needs working on and improving, the reality of the situation is that small projects which are important to the department are often have to be put onto the back burner because of issues regarding capacity and so on and so forth. But you can learn to build in Epic and very rapidly are able to actually improve Epic for your department and other departments as well. And that, as I said, the second bullet is to complete projects that may not be prioritized by the project team. So it means you kind of have a foothold within Epic, and you can really build it and develop your department's footprint within the system. There are various courses that a physician or a surgeon, a doctor, mainly doctors, can attend. The first is a group of power user sessions, which they're optional to the Physician Builder program, but they give you a taste of the Epic the Epic training program, and the courses are very, very high quality, and the power user program consists of around 7 modules which are an hour each and will teach you how to use Epic better. They're very well regarded, and I know a lot of people who've been onto them and gained a lot from them. Do contact me if you're interested in, or James if you are interested in going on the power user course or gaining more information about it, and then then we can discuss it further. Usually, I think that's a good starting point for people. And if you've enjoyed the courses and want to learn more, there is the next step, which is Notecraft for physicians. So this is a longer training program which you can do virtually, and that involves being taught how to build and share smart phrases, smart text, so on and so forth, and develop those for your department. You then move on to these are 2 3-day courses, one which is called Physician Build Basic, where you develop the skills that you've learned in CLN 145, this Notecraft for Physicians training course. You build on that and learn how to do more in the EPIC system. Then there's the option to either go to Physician Build Analytics, which teaches you more about the details of reporting and so on, or CLN 160, which is the Physician Build Advanced, which teaches you how to build tools in EPIC in more detail. And once you've gone to the end here, you will be given a login to the build environment, and you can with an infrastructure that we're building on and improving, you can really start building. And there are certain people within the trust who've done a huge amount, which I'll come onto in a second. So I've touched on this already, but what can a physician builder do? Well, they can build data inputting tools, so you can improve your department's notes, share with all users in your department. You can build your own letter templates, which speeds up changes. Flow sheets and smart forms are tools which allow us to input data into EPIC, either longitudinally or at various points in either at a patient level or in an encounter level. So you start building a database for your department that you can then go and collect data from in due course. You can improve processes, so ordering processes, for example, building order sets. There are things called express lanes, which mean that you can see a patient more rapidly in clinic by facilitating the pathway for the clinic visit. And then there are data export tools, so you can learn how to do reports. You can build registries, which I'm going to come on to in a second, and then other ways of looking at data, for example, synopses. So when you see a patient in clinic, the data that you really want to see about that patient will come up right in front of you. So hopefully you'll be able to improve efficiency significantly within your departments. The benefits of the Physician Builder program are given here. So number 1 is faster implementation of enhancement requests. Secondly, increased efficiency for the workflows that count to you and your team. Increased overall satisfaction with the system. And number 4, improved communication between the project team and end users. And I haven't spoken about that much yet, but I think that's a major advantage of the Physician Builder program, because the analysts within EPIC will support you to build elements of EPIC elements for your department. You get to know that team, you get to understand the team, how it works, how EPIC works, and that's been really beneficial for me and colleagues. This is some data from the EPIC Central, which looked at this is from an American institution, a survey of 1,000 physicians, which showed that having a successful physician builder program is regarded positively and in numerous metrics. So these are the physician builders at CUH, and you can see it's across several departments that we have these physician builders. There are certain users, particularly I'd say Martin Besser and several others, who've done a huge amount within the system. Some of the users here have either just qualified or are very near qualifying. You'll see on there that we have quite a few physicians, fewer surgeons, Justin, but I mean, watch this space. I really think we can build on this, and it's I think this is a really positive for want of an umbrella word, a very nice group of people, and we really have fun doing it as well. I think we meet every month. We spend an afternoon together every quarter, and it's a really positive thing in the midst of all the negatives we're all having to deal with at the moment. So I just wanted to give you an example of something that I have done with Tim Raine and Miles Parks. I've got this slide here just in case what I'm about to do doesn't work. So I'm going to show you the Epic build environment, which I hope you can see now. Now, when you go to see an IBD physician, they're very well developed in terms of the data which they capture at clinic visits.
Will.
Sorry.
Will, I can't see it. I don't know if others can.
No, we can just see yourself, Will, not your screen.
That must be very suboptimal for you all. Let me just try that again. Can you see that now?
There's a blank screen at the moment.
Okay.
Well, yes, yep. Now we can see an Epic.
Oh, very good. So this
yeah.
this is the Epic build environment, and it looks just like the environment that you would use in everyday practice. And this is an example of an IBD clinic visit, and they have a tab up here called a navigator, which contains the data which they collect for patients. So, on a basic level, for example, current IBD diagnosis, etc., lots of very detailed information there. But until recently, they were not able to actually easily get data from the system on an everyday sort of basis. And so I built a registry for them, which in the background every week is refreshing. When a patient comes to the clinic, it also automatically refreshes and pulls data in about those patients. So the whole time we're collecting data, and it means that you can use a report to very rapidly obtain information about your patients. So I don't know if many of you use the reporting facility in Epic, but you can get to it through your through the top left here. Your screen will look slightly different, but there's a reporting section of it. You click on that, go to the report tool, then you can search across a lot of reports. And one of the reports you could find, although it probably wouldn't be relevant for most of you, would be the IBD registry report. And you can get information very rapidly from the system using this report. So, for example, if you wanted to know whether a patient, what the certainty was of a patient having ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, you can just pull that across there, and you would press run, and it runs your report in the background. It does this it's slightly slower in the live environment, but you can see in this proof of concept environment that you get all these patients through. There are a subset of columns which I've programmed the report to give you every time, but the one that I've just asked to put in has come in here, and it's an example of how you can go from collecting data to actually pulling out data very easily and effectively, and this is all through things which I've learned in the Physician Builder program, and it means I've built one for hepatology as well, but it means that we can start actually helping all departments, not just the ones that we're involved with. So I just wanted to show you that as an example of the sort of thing that you can learn to do in the Physician Builder program. So that's all that I wanted to say. I think we're taking questions at the end. So I think it's over to Ari now to talk about Secure Chat and some other bits as well. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.
Thanks. Hopefully people can see my presentation. No, great opportunity thanks for the opportunity to come and speak about Secure Chat, which is something that's been I've been working on and with others over the last few months. Just by way of background, many of you I'm sure will be aware that actually since 2019 there's been a national, not just CUH mandate, that we should remove non-emergency bleeps and long-range pagers by the end of this year, actually, which is obviously rapidly approaching, with the view that NHS staff will use modern alternatives such as mobile phones and apps. And I have to say, I wouldn't particularly miss the going of bleeps. Having to stand by the phone, not sure whether or not anyone's actually received the bleep or not. and then the phone being engaged if I do actually respond to a bleep that I've received myself. Just so that everyone knows what we're talking about here, we're talking about anything that isn't one of these bleeps, one of these sort of well, cardiac arrest bleeps, or fire, or major trauma, obstetric emergency, so forth. So what's the alternative? I think we all know that, you know, many of us use you know, WhatsApp and similar sorts of messaging service, and they are really popular. I'll gloss over whether or not they're actually not allowed by the trust, but the reason they're popular is they really work. You know, it is actually incredibly convenient to send messages from phones, but there are a number of disadvantages. This is quite problematic, and I think one of the big disadvantages really is a matter of data governance. There are actually some circumstances, and I think that WhatsApp is end-to-end encrypted, but actually it may surprise you, there are some circumstances where your data isn't even encrypted. Perhaps more importantly, from a day-to-day basis, we have actually very little idea who we're sending data to with groups. We've certainly had actually quite sensitive data sent to WhatsApp groups that contained people that weren't even in the trust, and that was unbeknownst to the person that was sending the message. And there really is a potential to break law, oneself and the recipients who end up with confidential sensitive information on their phones, perhaps unwittingly. And I've certainly been on the receiving end of you know, probably illegal messages which were sent completely, you know, well-meaning way. And I think the other thing actually is that to some extent, I suppose it depends on the individual, but it's quite intrusive really. These sorts of apps mix kind of work communications with personal communication within the same sort of app. And also it means you need to share your personal phone number, which is part of your digital identity increasingly nowadays. You can see this is a completely bona fide, very reasonable and actually not problematic coronavirus response group that I was a member of, saying some very sensible stuff. None of it's actually sensitive. You can see there are actually 52 participants on this, and I've blanked out the numbers, or the majority of the numbers. Well, I actually have virtually no idea who most of these people are, but I've got 51 people's phone numbers now, and they've all got mine, and I don't know who they are. I'm not quite sure who I'm sending these things to. So there are some problems with using these kinds of apps, which is why they're not sanctioned by, well, actually anywhere in the NHS, certainly not for patient communication anyway. So what do we have instead? Well, within Epic provides for something called Secure Chat, which has been very successfully rolled out in a number of Epic sites in the US, but also a bit closer to home as well. So Great Ormond Street at UCLH went live with a slightly more recent version of Epic until our upgrade. So they've been using this for a little while. Secure Chat has two components really. It's got the component that you access from within Hyperspace. This is my normal login with my patient station and everything. And you'll have noticed there's a little, in everyone's Hyperspace, we'll have a little tab with a speech bubble in it, which lights up orange if you've got a message, and messages down here. It works very much like a messaging app. And you can see I can associate the message with the patient as well. That's one component. The other component is the app. For example, this Haiku app, which works on the phones. There's some apps as well that work on Rover, the nursing tools, and iPads as well. And essentially, everybody with Epic Access has access to this part. And Haiku apps, this is going to be essentially our bleep replacement for those people that currently carry bleeps or use bleeps, or anyone that wants to use it as well. So advantages of this, well, obviously the lack of the disadvantages I've mentioned with WhatsApp. There's no need to share personal phone numbers because you message an actual individual CUH staff. The messages, as I'll show you, are actually integrated into the chart as well. At least if you associate a message with a patient, that messaging history is available within the chart permanently as well. It works from within Hyperspace, so people can message from Hyperspace. And it keeps work messaging completely separate from personal messaging, so that the messaging in the app is totally isolated. Their data is totally isolated from other data on the phone. So we've been up and running since July in one way or another, and actually the numbers, it is proving extremely popular. So numbers have increased, sort of skyrocketed. We had about nearly 70,000 messages sent in November, and if current messages to data carry on this month, we'll probably hit, well, certainly over 70,000, possibly 80,000 messages, maybe 90,000 by the end of this month. You can see actually the sort of really big users, such as inpatient dispenser, the sort of things you might not really expect, have really picked this up and run with this and found this to be extremely useful. So, so that's that. I did the most basic. We can send a message to say, please ring extension, whatever, as a direct bleep replacement. But there's a lot more that one can do with it because it is a proper messaging app. And I've certainly been using it quite a lot when I've been doing my calls and when I've been doing clinical work. And I found sort of new ways of working. So here's just an example. Obviously, I've blanked out anything sensitive. But here I've got a group conversation. You'll see that at the time this is 23:50. So I'm at home. I'm doing my call from at home. I've got a message about this patient, which the name I've blanked out. But I can click on that patient and remind myself, go into the chart and remind myself who it is. I've sent a message back to the clinical fellows that have messaged me saying, well, you know, what I think they should do. And I immediately know that they've read the message or not, immediate feedback. They can give me some more information and we can have this kind of conversation. And of course, unlike a bleep, I can also be messaging several people. This is a group conversation between 4 of us. And you'll see that, in fact, not only am I messaging not just one of the clinical fellows, but both of the clinical fellows that are on duty in NCCU. That's how we structure things. So if one of them does get called away to the ED or something, then everyone's got the same mental model of what's going on. But I'm actually also engaging in messaging with the staff nurse that's actually a bedside nurse that's looking after this patient as well. So everybody's got exactly the same picture of what the discussion is and what we're going to do here. And so I'm also able to just from the app, or in this case, go into Epic, and I can see all the data and remind myself what's going on with this patient. And that whole conversation, because it's associated with this patient, is also recorded within Epic. So everything I said, the time that I sent it, and the time that it was seen or not seen is available as part of the medical record. So that's been live since and available since, as I say, kind of late July. And seems to be going well. Since the November 2020 upgrade, we couldn't do this before. This was functionality that didn't exist before. There's a few new things that have become available now up and running. So the first thing was explicitly being able to set one's availability and even a time, expiry time for availability. And perhaps more importantly, also being able to set one's unavailability and switch off notifications to the app, maybe with a little message explaining why. So that's available now as of November upgrade. Another thing that's available now is the possibility of sending clinical photographs, again, completely secured, associated with the patient. It's not stored on the phone at all, so there's no data governance problem, and it automatically gets added to the media tab, so that photograph becomes part of the medical record. An important thing that is just going to be coming soon is we have to realize that, of course, a lot of our bleeps are not personal bleeps, but baton bleeps handed from team to team on call team, for example. And we need some way of replicating that, because Secure Chat is a messaging app, the messaging from an individual to an individual rather than to a particular role. But the way that we're going to be replicating that within Epic, so it's just being built now, so it will be appearing in Epic over the next few weeks, is creating these things called opt-in groups. And so I've got a few actually running as tests within NCCU. There'll actually be more like 300 of these groups eventually. But I've got a group, NCCU clinical fellows, nurses in charge, critical care coordinators, and we can favorite these as well. So that allows me to actually message all of the clinical fellow group or the on-call whatever group, rather than having to know the particular name of that person. And what the person will do, the equivalent of picking up the bleep at the beginning of the shift, would be to go into the app or on Hyperspace and just flick the opt-in button on the app. And then they become, any messages going to that group will automatically go to that individual too. So as I say, that's just being built at the moment in the test environment. Will come through to the main environment. We're trying very hard to create all the tip sheets and other kind of support documents that go with that as well. And then there's other stuff maybe for the future. It is possible to integrate physiological alerts within Haiku, within Secure Chat. And there's some other interesting things that may be quite useful in other areas. So, for example, it's possible, it needs a little bit of research, we can switch this on, but to opt in to particular lab results, so that, for example, you send a troponin, if it's a lab result you're waiting for before a patient can be discharged or something else happen, then it's possible to opt in and have that result actually notify you on within Secure Chat. So there's a few interesting things potentially for the future as well. That's really all I was going to say, but just to point you towards Connect, if you search in Connect for Secure Chat and Epic, then anyone that hasn't registered and would like to register for Haiku on a phone, that's where the instructions are to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Ari. So Justin, back to yourself.
No, thanks, Afzal, and thanks James and Will and Ari for really informative information. If anyone has any questions for the team, could you just raise your sort of Zoom hand? That would be really good, and then we can put some questions to everyone who's here. I'm sure that would be useful. Ari, if I can I just ask, along with Afzal, if you have any sense yet of, I mean, you mentioned the end of December, so clearly that's not going to be a timescale that will be met, and we're obviously making good progress, and just having it running in the background has been hugely impressive. The number of teams that have been taking Secure Chat up. Do we yet have a sense of when the Bleeps will sort of physically go, as it were, or are we still working towards a timescale that is reasonable on that?
Yeah, I think we're sort of still working towards a timescale, and clearly, you know, with the best will in the world, the end of December, the first day of January probably isn't a very good day to be making major change to anything anyway. So I think we'll be looking sort of just into the very early part of the new year. But I mean, still to be determined. But I mean, let's think about some very early part of, you know, January, February, something.
And have there been Wi-Fi infrastructural requirements to reassure you as a team and the clinicians using this of its sort of widespread availability throughout the trust?
Yeah, so I think this does certainly go hand in hand with the Wi-Fi upgrades, and we clearly need data access in order for this to work. I mean, I think it's perhaps just worth caveating this or putting this in the context that there are Bleep black spots around the hospital as well, here and there. So it's nothing new. What's quite nice about this is that if you were in a black spot, you know, the thing keeps on, like a messaging app, it keeps on trying to message you until you get out of the black spot. So, I mean, I've been using this for quite some time, sort of in anger, and I haven't actually, NCCU is a bit of a problem in terms of Wi-Fi for various technical reasons that will be resolved in the next few months. But actually, I haven't found it to be a particular problem, because as you're walking around going about your business, there's very little delay actually. But yes, I mean, this will only improve as the Wi-Fi Wi-Fi gets.
Well, it's good that we've got some senior nursing colleagues on the call as well, which was certainly my intention to, because obviously we're all in this together, as they say, and I think it's key that our nursing colleagues are equally involved. And I know feedback from West Suffolk, who've been using a very different app, but nonetheless an alternative to Bleeps, has been largely positive in the effects of the time it's freed up for the clinical staff, which I think you mentioned earlier. Sani Aliyu has got a question. Sani, can I ask you to?
Sure. Thank you, Justin.
Thanks.
So I have a quick question for Ari. At the moment, we have, so for the infectious disease team, for instance, we have registers that cover referrals and a register that covers the ward, etc. Are you able to send a message to a specific registrar? Because we're talking about outside the team here. Let's say another specialty wants to get hold of the ID registrar covering referrals. Yeah. Can we have a chat system that allows the person to search for the ID team, search for a specific registrar designation, and then send a message through?
Yeah, absolutely, Sani. So what we've created, or what I've gone through, and it's been quite a reasonably mammoth task, is essentially try to map one for one all the current baton Bleep roles, and I forget exactly how many there are in infectious diseases, and we can create more or combine them or whatever. And each of those being mapped into an opt-in group. So I think, so two things to say to that. One is that there will be a piece of work for individual departments, such as infectious diseases, to actually bed in the process that when the registrars come on duty, to pick that as an example, they need to opt into that group so that they are a part of that group, and then opt out of it again at the end of their shift, so they don't receive messages that they're irritating. And so that we also know who's in the group at any one time. So that I'm sure that will take some time before, you know, people realise. I think it's worth also just giving some thought, and I'm not necessarily suggesting whether infectious diseases is a particular use case for this, but certainly within NCCU and some other areas, actually there is sometimes an advantage of everybody receiving, or a group of people receiving the same message, even if not all of them are going to respond to it, if one person's going to respond. And I think the advantage is sometimes, depending on people's particular workflow, is that it adds a certain amount of resilience if someone is busy. And And sometimes it does create that sort of shared mental model. So it may be that in some areas we want to coalesce some of these groups into a single group and have multiple people in that group. But again, I think that's something I'd sort of urge people to have a think about in their areas, whether it makes sense for their particular workflows. And in truth, you know, the groups that we go live with soon are not set in stone in any way. We can create more, we can rename them, we can coalesce them. I think to some extent we'll have to sort of see how they bed in, really.
Thank you, Ari.
Sani, thank you for your question. Ari, just moving that forward, in the short to medium term, do you want any specialties or groups to come forward to you with requests or info and help they think they will need, or do you want, or will there be? Do you want to wait and we'll sort of contact them? How do you see that?
Yeah. So good question, Justin. So I think what we'll probably do, the model I've been working on in terms of rolling this out so far, is that we'll get the current set of bleeps out. So we've got a one-to-one replacement essentially for the bleeps, and let people have a look. We've got a network of clinical champions that I think cover many specialties, or most specialties, that have had a sort of first pass through this. Once we've got those out, then I think I'll reach out via the clinical champions to see whether people want to create new groups. I think the reason I've been slightly cautious of that is when I've been speaking to some individual departments, they said, oh, well, we could have a group for this and a group for that. And that may well be absolutely what we want, and it may well be a very good solution for them. But equally, I think it would be quite nice if they just have a look at it first, because it may also be that we have a proliferation of different groups, which becomes potentially quite irritating for the staff that have to opt into multiple different groups and so on. So I think in a sense, I would be quite keen for people to have a look at what we have. But absolutely, after we've gone live with it, we'll be having requests for new groups or changes or whatever. And I'll be actually the clinical champion network. Yeah.
Thank you. I think potentially a very exciting thing for us to look forward to come 2022, and we've not been able to say that about many things over the last few months, perhaps. Rachel May has got a question. It's Rachel, leading us to Division A. Thanks for joining us, Rachel. It's great that you're here. Grateful for your question.
No, thank you. It was less of a question, more of a comment, really. And you've answered my question actually about how we're going to be able to request groups, but certainly we've been using it within Division A with our matrons and our band sevens, and actually in terms of communication it has made it much more effective, quicker response. Yeah, absolutely. So very, very supportive of embedding it.
Thanks, Rachel. That's nice to hear, and I do generally think it has been extremely positive. And I think it actually really has made me reflect on how useless bleeps really were, and how outdated bleep technology really is.
Thanks for that feedback, Rachel. Will, I wondered if I could ask you about just some of the logistics of the training program that you mentioned, which looks exciting, particularly when people can make such significant changes to their own departmental sort of workflows and increase efficiencies and make things much easier on a day-to-day basis. How long does it take, and what sort of time commitment would be involved for those who might be potentially interested in taking up those builder type roles?
So it's essentially three-day courses to become fully accredited. At the moment it's a bit up in the air as to whether they can be done online or whether you have to go to one of the EPIC training bases for them. Ultimately, when we get back to improved travel, once again, they have training out of, they actually have some out of Bristol now, but also I went with Rich Benson to a place called Hertgenbosch, which I don't think I pronounced it correctly, but is in the Netherlands, which was good fun. And we actually also went to the EPIC site in Wisconsin for the final course. So it's a mixture of online and in-person training. They're very keen for everyone at some stage to ultimately to go to EPIC and actually see the campus there, which is an incredible place, really. And I'll just also re-emphasize that the actual quality of the teaching is really fantastic. I don't think I've been on any teaching courses, training courses, which are as good. So anyone who's interested, please do make contact.
And Will, I guess you should probably mention, Will, that the projects that are associated, because they do have a significant time commitment.
Yeah. So there's a project at the end of each of the courses which are required to gain the accreditation. When you can sort of do them alongside the courses, but they are several hours of work on top of the 3 days. The way that I think Rich and I did it, we as I said, did them alongside. So by the end of the 3 days, we had pretty much done the project as well. But they are quite intense, but worthwhile.
It sounds, for those who are interested, sort of personally worthwhile, but from a departmental perspective, it looks like you can make some excellent inroads. And perhaps I say this with no real knowledge, but I hear people saying, it's difficult to get information out of EPIC. It's hard to do quote unquote research, and I can put stuff in, but I can't get it out. I'm sensing that these types of bills are one way to address those sorts of generic concerns that I sort of hear now and again.
No, I agree. I entirely agree with that. And Tim and Miles and their colleagues were putting in a huge amount of data, and not being able to get access to it easily must have been soul destroying. And this has really improved that for them.
Thank you. If anyone else has any questions, do please raise your hands. Otherwise, I might ask Afzal and colleagues if you have anything else you wish to add or clarify based on anything that we've heard so far.
The only thing I wanted to add is, in terms of the Physician Builder program, is that, as with anything, it does take, you do need to maintain your skills. And so we don't have a sort of cast iron commitment that people have to make, but what we would expect is that people who have completed the course do continue to work with Will and the other physician builders, and sort of continue to not only maintain their skills but actually grow them over time. And it's only by doing that, and the byproduct of that happily is greater benefit for your own department, that it becomes a sort of win-win situation for the department, plus the individual physician builder gets to maintain their skills in a consistent fashion.
Thank you for that, Afzal. And Afzal, am I right in just saying that we are now one of, if not the sort of most digitally mature, for want of a better term, hospitals in the UK / Europe? And secondly, I know we've just had a recent upgrade, but is there any sort of sense of what further upgrades we might expect across the EPIC sort of infrastructure and timescales?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of digital maturity, I mean, you can measure that in all sorts of ways. And, as with everything, it measures some things and it doesn't measure everything. So the metric that is most typically used is one of the HIMSS metric. HIMSS is the Healthcare Information Management System Society. They've rated now, I think, approaching somewhere between 10 and 11,000 hospitals worldwide. So we were the first hospital in the UK in October of last year to reach the highest level for inpatient care. Since then, in fact, we've now been joined by Alderhay Hospital for paediatrics and also Sunderland Hospital for inpatient care. Great Ormond Street have reached the same level for outpatient care, but not for inpatient care. So we've been in many respects leading the way, but there are others now joining us. To put that into context, there are currently only 14 hospitals, including the 3 UK ones, to reach that metric in the whole of Europe. So it is a significant achievement. In terms of upgrades, EPIC have, since 2018, have moved to a quarterly release cycle. So we will be continuing to do upgrades in a more consistent way now that we've caught up. And in broad terms, we're still working on the pattern, but realistically, given the challenges on staffing, both within the e-hospital team, but within the wider hospital, and even excluding all the challenges of COVID, we don't want to be sort of subjecting everybody to, in effect, sort of constant upgrading. So we're likely to move to a pattern of an upgrade once a year in terms of new technology from EPIC, but then throughout that year, work with the teams and the transformation teams to think about which aspects of the new capabilities are we actually going to enable and embed within clinical and operational staff practice. So, for example, with the work that we've just done, which was an 11 version upgrade, which happily won't be as big again in the future, there's a ton of new capability. some of which we're not using, and we're going to do some work, as I say, planning now for the early part of next year in conjunction with transformation as to which ones we start to deploy as we go through the sort of spring of next year into the summer. But then probably again towards the autumn next year, it will be a sort of 5 version upgrade, and then annually probably 4 versions, 1 each quarter, once a year. And that'll get us into a much more consistent rolling program of both technology and operational improvement as we go forward.
Brilliant. Thank you, Afzal. So I don't see any further hands up. What I'd like to do is thank you, Afzal, James, Will, Ari, very much for the information tonight. It's been really, really insightful. As I say, it's a positive step for us to look forward into 2022. I'm grateful for Rachel and other nursing colleagues for joining us, for Mike Moore as the Trust Chair for joining us, and Patrick as Regis Professor of Physics. Thank you for joining us and getting the message across all different fora. Much appreciated, everybody. Have a restful holiday period for those that can. And I'll be in touch into next year with some further speakers and hopefully exciting talks to come. So again, thanks all, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.